I just recorded a couple of riff lessons using something called E flat tuning, and I thought for the benefit of anyone who's not necessarily familiar with that, I better explain what it is and why we might want to use that tuning. So what is E flat tuning? When you first start learning, when you first pick up guitar, the chances are you're going to be using your guitar in something that we call standard tuning, which is what you're familiar with when you tune your guitar. So across the strings from the sixth string, the fat string, down to the first string, E, A, D, G, B and E. That's what we call standard tuning, and to be honest, that's what most guitarists will probably use most of the time. It's not the only tuning, there's loads of other tunings that are used for different reasons. In this instance, E flat tuning is quite a simple one. It means that rather than tuning to what I've just said, E, A, D, G, B, E, we tune half a step or a semitone or one fret lower than what we normally do. So when we tune nice strings, instead of having E, we'd have E flat. That's where it gets its name from. Instead of A, we'd have A flat. Instead of D, D flat. G becomes G flat. B. So they're all flattened by a semitone, or one fret if you will. Why might we want to do that? Well, it sounds different is the simple explanation. Slightly more acceptable, better explanation is the riffs, the two riffs that I've just recorded were by Megadeth and Slayer, so the heavy metal, thrash metal riffs. Tuning down to E flat is quite a common thing in the heavy metal genre, and it gives you a heavier sound when you're playing, and it suits that genre quite well. Not all bands do it. Even those bands that I just mentioned, particularly Megadeth, they don't do it for every song, but sometimes they will do that to give the song a particularly different sound. The beautiful thing about E flat tuning is that once you've done it, it's not like a completely weird tuning where you've got to learn different chords. It is literally your standard tuning, just drop down one semitone. So all my normal chords that I'm familiar with, they all work, they all sound great. This guitar is tuned down to E flat now because I've been using it for those riff lessons. So you don't have to learn a whole new fingering, which you actually do on some of the more obscure tunings. So that's a great thing about it. One thing maybe to watch out for when you're down tuning is the guitar that you're using. I was able to do it quite simple on this guitar. If you remember my original videos explaining guitars of different types, this is a fixed bridge guitar, so all I had to do was just twiddle my pegs a little bit, detune my strings, just to get down to that tuning. Slightly more complicated than my other electric guitar, my floating bridge tremolo guitar. If I was to tune that down, then I might have to compensate on the tension on the tremolo system because I've slackened the strings, and it might need a little bit more setup work. But on a fixed bridge, on an ordinary guitar like this, it's normally alright to do quite easily. Tuning wise, if you don't have a tuner that's capable of doing E flat and you want to have a go at it, then the simplest way around that is to use your normal standard tuning but play your notes on your first fret. So whereas normally on your tuner you'd play an open E string against your E on your tuner, if you fret your E string at the first fret and play against your tuner, that will give you an E as it should be. You can do that on all your strings to achieve E flat tuning if your tuner isn't capable of picking up that E flat. Most tuners are, but just for the benefit of anyone who's got a tuner that for whatever reason doesn't do that. I decided to use E flat because that's what the band played in. For the sake of practicing my riffs, which I've designed as exercises, you don't necessarily have to do it, it'll work just the same in E, but just be aware that you won't be able to play along with the original record because it'll sound out of tune. But if you just play along with yourself, all the strings have been detuned the same amount, like I just showed. So your chords work the same, the guitar works just the same, and everything's happy. So it's a different tuning, it's one of the many different tunings. It's used extensively in metal, quite a lot, to make the riff sound heavier, to make the parts sound heavier and deeper, is another way of explaining it. But other than that, it's a fairly simple thing to achieve. So if you want to have a go at it, have a play with it, see what it sounds like, enjoy.